I know people will immediately, with this movie, tell me, or rather, people online would just automatically say, "Didn't this movie just come out last year?" And you would be half right, but no, it is a full fledged sequel. But it's just funny how it has been less than a year, and we're already just now getting the second installment in this supposed trilogy. It's kind of weird that for as many years it has been trying to make that third movie, and yet now we're automatically getting a follow up to that third film. I mean, at least it won't take another couple of years just to get another one out. If they're managing to do that, they must be doing something right.
And now, a leap into the unknown.
"28 Years Later, The Bone Temple" is directed by DaCosta and written again by Alex Garland. The film stars Ray Fiennes, Jack O'Connor, Alfie Williams, Erin Kellyman, and Lewis-Parry. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, as Spike is inducted into Jimmy Crystal's gang on the mainland, Dr. Kelson makes a discovery that could alter the world. 28 Years Later was one of my favorite films of last year, and I was very excited to see where things were going with this now fourth installment. And I know that last movie was very divisive amongst fans or just moviegoers in general. Some either really love it, like myself, or some just thought it was a disappointing follow up and left things very divisive. And nonetheless, because yes, that was a very controversial ending to that movie. As much as I was not crazy about the ending and how that all turned out, I was still at least optimistic because at the very least, that last movie gave me a infected film that was completely different than most other infected related type of movies or shows of that genre, because at the very least it became all about family and the idea of spending time with the ones you love in the moments that they are with you, and also just being a coming of age story of what it means to grow up in a apocalyptic world. Having shot this back to back with the previous film, because yes, with 28 Years Later and this movie being shot back to back, it was able to at the very least feel like more of a continuation, or seeming like nothing has kind of changed, everything kind of has remained pretty much the same. It allowed for DaCosta the chance to step into the director's chair over Danny Boyle to continue with where things had left off. And yes, DaCosta, most people would only know her, I feel like, mainly just for her two big movies, which are, of course, Candyman, which was very divisive when it came out, as well as a bad sour taste for a lot of people in the MCU with the Marvels. So, yes, even though I will not deny I can't fully 100% blame her for that movie because she has opened up about her experience working on it, so I'm not gonna blame her 100% for it. Just a little, but not to an extent. So I was at the very least happy that she was gonna get a bounce back for it. After the divisive ending of the last movie, who knew where this movie was gonna go? Because how that film ended and the implications that were behind that ending, people can go either way. As much as I wasn't crazy, I was like, all right, we're in a place where it could at least get better, because I wasn't crazy about how things got a little goofy near the end, because I thought everything was much dour, or at the very least very serious, and then all of a sudden you got all this crazy stuff with this Jimmy cult and how they showed up. But thankfully, the film not only kept up with the previous movie, not only did it do that, I think this just became now my favorite film in the series. Hands down, I will stand by this. This is now my favorite film in this franchise. And I didn't think that was going to be the case. With no negatives, like none whatsoever. I legit car ride home, I didn't think of any sort of problems with this movie at all. So here are now all of the positives. The performances are excellent. Everyone in the cast, but particularly, of course, Fiennes, O'Connell, and Williams, continue to showcase how humans would be in this world, allowing us to see how people can be the true monsters. Ralph Fiennes, who continued from where he was at with 28 Years Later as Ian Kelson, who is, of course, the doctor that Spike went to see with his mother. Still phenomenal. Funny, but also so delightful to watch. It's just crazy to me how a guy like this can go from these big or very drama performances, goes from that to playing a doctor who's just really insane and just downright disturbing, but is very sweet nonetheless. He's a very kind guy. It's just that from afar you could tell that this guy is so off, but yet he's just such a gentle person when it comes to having conversations and having sort of discussions about life, or rather what the world was like before the rage virus took over. There's just something about how Ralph Fiennes goes about it, and he makes Ian Kelson such a delightful character to watch that I was just so riveted whenever he was on screen. Jack O'Connell, who had a phenomenal year last year with Sinners, he is still playing diabolical characters, and this movie continues that streak because boy oh boy, Sir Jimmy Crystal is such a deplorable human being in any sort of capacity, and especially with who he is based off of. Yeah, this guy is a complete fucking piece of shit, an asshole at best. But Jack O'Connell, he just continues to crush it. I hope he just doesn't get always typecast as villains, but I'm really liking how he was in Sinners, and now with this movie being so sadistic and so just also charming. There's also something about him that's just so captivating to watch that you just can't think to yourself, like, I can't listen to this guy. You're just like, what is this guy goal? What's his angle? Like, what is it about him that's just so riveting to watch? And it's just how he just spins so much bullshit to make you just be like, wow, that's actually fascinating for bullshit, but man, it's really entertaining. And of course, Alfie Williams, who is a breakout star from the last movie, continues. He manages to match the same levels, even though not as much how he was in the previous movie, but still meeting what both Fiennes and O'Connell also bring to the table. Like, he is able to, at the very least, go toe to toe with them and still be on their same wavelength, that he is able to still convey this kid who is just trying to still explore what the outside world has to offer after being sheltered, and showcase some of the lies that have been spewed to him. So he feels as if he wants to go out and search for that. And what he ultimately discovers is, yeah, human beings are just complete fucking assholes, and they are just always awful to one another. And he is still a character that you just really root for and hope to still survive by the end of this. The direction is spectacular. Director Nia DaCosta heightens the tension and disturbing nature of the Jimmy cult. She also lets the film be funny and zany, even though you could say, well, this film kind of feels like how the previous movie was. Fair enough, but I really do feel like Nia DaCosta does try to implement some things in here that makes it, at the very least, a little bit different from the previous movie, and that she is allowing the Jimmy cult to just be as sadistic as she can. I mean, this cult, if you truly think the alphas or the infected are the real terrible, awful creatures that they are, this Jimmy cult beats them, because yes, the ending of the last movie made them so goofy. You're like, how am I gonna take these guys seriously as being sadistic and bloodthirsty? Don't worry, because they make sure they quickly establish, no, these guys are not to be joked around with. These guys are menacing and scary and just downright disgusting human beings. And even though you can have an argument with the other members, but really, yeah, this cult is just insane. It is batshit crazy on what they try to go and how they approach other human beings, how they talk to one another, and the things that they do to other survivors and to themselves. I mean, it's just nasty. And Nia DaCosta, she really fully leans into the crazy nature of not just this cult, but just how this world has been really evolving over the years, and also showcasing how the infected, through the lens of Samson, and how it is changing through the ways in which evolution is, and also just some really disturbing sequences in this movie, and also some funny ones. I was just surprised on how much this movie can be hilarious at times. For a movie that has infected and has some really horrific things, it just manages to get laughs out of me, especially one that involves Kelson with a performance that he gives at the Bone Temple. I mean, wow, just wow. And yeah, Nia DaCosta, she is able to hold it down and continue on with what Danny Boyle had set up, and able to keep things as strong, as lock solid as possible, and also really feeling like it is, in her way, her vision. It doesn't feel like Danny Boyle came in and took over everything that she wanted to do. Danny Boyle gave her the reins to do what she wanted, and she succeeded in not just respecting what Danny Boyle has done, but respecting what she wants to do. And that is so amazing for her, and I hope she gets some respect because after the Marvels, I know that everyone's going to hate her because of that movie, but man, this movie, I think people should see her as somebody who is meant to be taken seriously. The story is solid. Seeing Dr. Ian Kelson trying to develop a relationship with an alpha infected, working on a cure, while also Spike and the Jimmy cult coming into contact with him made for a twisted and hilarious time. Something that hopefully people might find exciting. Because I know the last movie to a lot of people was very split. You either have people like myself who love it, and you have a lot of people who were very disappointed by it. But I do think that this is probably going to be the one that finds the middle ground for both parties because it continues with what was left off with the last movie, but it's also to where like all those ideas that maybe some weren't thinking were cohesive or felt like it was clashing with itself is very much tighter here for those who felt that way because it is able to continue what was left off and make it so that way is still showcasing this cult, how really terrible and horrible that they are and how twisted they can be with other people. And then you also have seen Dr. Ian Kelson, how he is able to do his daily life as well as meet this infected alpha named Samson and developing a relationship with him and then also potentially finding something that could help really reverse the rage virus and kind of revert it back to being human beings. I found that stuff to be really fascinating. How this story kept on going, I was just glued to the screen. I never felt bored by it or think that this movie had lost its way. There is a couple of times where I will say I did look away from the screen just by disgusting natures, but I thought that this movie really stuck the landing with how much for sequels usually tend to not really hit their stride. This movie does that. The writing is fantastic. Once again, writer Alex Garland crafts a script that makes scenes intense and gross. He also knows how to make scenes funny as well. There are a couple of times in this movie where I was laughing. And for a movie that has some really disturbing natures and things that you say to yourself like, should I really be laughing at this? I can't help but say, yeah, I was still laughing at it and it was hilarious. But yes, when those intense moments happen, they happen and they are very scary to watch, especially one that involves a torture scene with a group of survivors that Jimmy Cole come into contact with. And I'll tell you, this group is so disgusting. I couldn't even tell you how anybody sees the infected as being the worst things to unleash upon man. Like, human beings truly are their own worst enemies, and how really infectious and how twisted they can be towards one another. And Alex Garland was able to make a script that really goes into the ideas that are in here that I will talk about, but he is able to craft scenes that feel intuitive, feeling really engaging with itself, not feeling like it is tapping around the ideas or the notion of what this movie is. He really leans into what this movie sets out to do and succeeds in that. The music is atmospheric. Composer Hildur Gunnarter creates a score that captures the series' style and tone of being eerie, giving the film the same vibes as before. If you know how the music is in this series, it is very loud but very eerie, very creepy. Just what John Murphy had done with the original score for the first movie, and still, just like how 28 years later score was also excellent, this movie does the same thing here. It is really disturbing and really atmospheric. It fits the vibe, mood, and style that DaCosta wants to take this. So she is able to make a score that is really reflective of how most infected movies are, but really just one that just has an identity. It has a vibe. It has a tone to it that is really clicking with itself and never feeling like it is out of place. And for somebody who did excellent with composing for Joker, which won her Oscar for Best Score, this movie adds the reason why she is excellent at what she does with crafting music for films. The cinematography is stunning. Cinematographer Sean Bobbitt shoots a violent but gorgeous film that shows the Jimmy Colton and the mainland of Britain as violent and beautiful, making for some really disturbing imagery. Like I said, there are moments in this movie where it can be very disgusting and very violent. Like, this is not like a walk in the park. If you cannot handle violence and if you can't handle really disturbing imagery, this movie ain't gonna be it for you, because this movie will turn you off immediately, because heads being ripped off, skin being peeled. I mean, there's just something in the way in which Sean Bobbitt just showcases that is really disgusting, but it all the more serves the point of what this movie is, and also showcasing the luscious nature of Britain and how nature has kind of grown and repopulated amongst the animals that inhabit it, and the infected just roaming around when they do. So there is a way in which a movie like this is able to showcase the brutality, really awful nature of humans, but also showing the beautiness and how gorgeous the scenery is and how it is all captured in this wide angle shot. It's amazing. The production is effective. Just like the previous film, the crew work, sets, and costumes fit in line with what this world is like. The money was well used. Just like how the last movie, it became famous for having like multiple iPhone 15s. I don't know how, if this movie does the same way, but how that movie used iPhones and how it was tracking like kill shots and all. This movie is able to use what they had in the last movie and still be as effective here, because it fits in line with how this world would be. How Great Britain, that has been cut off from the rest of the world, how they would kind of go back to what times were like before the modern era, where everything was bleak, militaristic, and there is nothing left in society, seeming like everything is just open for anybody to just go out and kill each other. It's incredible to see the money being used well, especially with the Bone Temple. Just like how I praised how that set looks, here is gorgeous. It looks incredible. There's something disturbing about it and eerie, but also kind of beautiful as well if you had seen the last movie. And here, it also makes for some really disturbing imagery too, because of how they use it, especially for the end. Because yeah, they were able to utilize what the Bone Temple is for that ending climax, and it works out very well. The pacing and runtime is efficient. Each scene feels fast and never has a dull moment. With a runtime of 1 hour and 50 minutes, it hits perfectly. Usually, whenever it's infected movies, or rather movies that are post apocalyptic, they can go on for as long as they can. Here, it just hits the ground running and it keeps going. There's never a point where it just dilly dallies or stalls out. It just goes and it keeps on going. There's never a point where it just immediately stops. It just knows that, hey, we're already in this world. We already said with what was in the last movie, so we are just going with it. And we are following this Jimmy gang from the beginning to the very end. For being under 2 hours, I was surprised that this movie was able to tell everything you needed to under that period. That's impressive. It's creative. It showcases what they want to utilize and what they want to prioritize as being what this movie had to deliver on. The editing is fluent. Each cut is precise while also being chaotic when the tension is high, always feeling kinetic throughout. There was never a point where the editing just starts going off the rails or being inconsistent. Everything felt like it was hook, line, sync. Everything timed perfectly with how sequences were supposed to feel, how the tension was built, and how quickly it was able to just establish a mood, an atmosphere to it all. That's what works about most infected movies in this nature, in which you can really set a precedent of what a movie should feel like through the way in which you are cutting it. And here, it continues with what that last movie does, and I am hoping it continues to go on with that last film. The social commentary is scary, with Jimmy Crystal being modeled after Jimmy Savile, who, if you don't know, was a very famous British DJ back in the day, and years later it was discovered that he was an abusive person to children. It comes with discussions of child abuse, how much that this guy just revels in the idea of having younger people attacking and abusing one another for the sake of his entertainment and his amusement, but also tackling faith and the nature of man, because of course with Jimmy Crystal, he is very religious, or in this case very satanic. So for him to utilize that and to evaluate this cult of younger people and pretty much deluding them into the idea that old Nick, if you serve him, you will benefit from it. You being in this world, you are given a purpose into skinning away or killing as many people as you can to serve him, because he has protected you to survive the outbreak in order for you to become a servant of him. And yeah, the nature of man, what it means to be deprived, how it is kind of stripping away our identity, how it is kind of reverting us back into pretty much just animals, just vicious beasts that are willing to just kill one another for the sake of just killing. Nia DaCosta successfully keeps the series alive with this middle chapter, with stellar performances from Fiennes, O'Connell, and Williams, excellent writing. 28 years later, The Bone Temple dials everything to 11. Hopefully, the final film can just land things on a high note. I just am hoping that this trilogy just ends on a satisfying way that pleases everyone that was either divisive on the first movie or loved the first movie. Regardless, I wish it the best because I know this movie's not probably going to make a lot of money, but at the very least, I'm just happy that they can hopefully finish this trilogy out, because it would just be nice to know that for a movie that's under Sony, it was not dictated by them or utilized to just make money off of an IP. I'm just glad to see that Danny Boyle, but also Nia DaCosta, were able to just keep this series alive. And yeah, once again, performances, they're all stellar, they're all excellent, and just amazing to watch all these actors just be as deprived, crazy, and hilarious all in the same time. I'm going to give 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple a 10 out of 10. This movie is fantastic. I was legit surprised on how well this movie just hit on all cylinders. There was never a point in this movie where I was bored or felt like it was going too long or I was uninterested in something. No, I was just legit locked in from beginning to end. I was invested. I was just curious on where things were going and how that ending is. I am very much hoping that third movie can get made, because yeah, that's a big deal, especially for how many years it's been since the first movie. I wish it can get made and hopefully gets released as soon as possible. So I will be soon doing a review for Dead Man's Wire soon. So yes, look forward to that review and other reviews coming soon.